Hi everybody, my name is Ella Nayer and I'm so happy to get to meet all of you, even in this kind of virtual reality. It'd be great to be in person, but I'm glad to finally get to actually say hi to you all. So this paper has been really fascinating, and all the research of going to try to figure out first of all, what to really write about. But then I decided to go with psychology because it is really how we think about things and how we look at things and our own behavior and thought processes that goes into all of everything that we do, good and bad. So my presentation really is about just how we are, just how we look at ourselves, how we think about ourselves on the most simplest of levels. Looking at a mirror, just seeing ourselves. Do you really look at yourself? Being able to see and actually look into ourselves is key in a lot of the findings that we discussed with internally, so to speak, with the researchers that I looked at. After pouring through lots of psychology studies, it's evident that the psychological processes such as the internal locus of control and how we see ourselves and how we see ourselves to others is really a big deal when it comes to actually hurting somebody else. That need for identity and belonging and to feel safe are all connected to that. If you see yourself on the outside and sort of helpless in a situation, you, according to the research, are more likely to harm somebody or cause somebody else pain and suffering, because then that need to not be vulnerable and that self-threat overcomes. Whereas people that have an internal locus as opposed to external, those tend to be your rescuers. Those are your ones who are willing to risk their own lives to go and save somebody else, because they connect to another human being. They connect to people outside of themselves and see them as just like them, and why would they want them to suffer? So I found that to be very interesting, as in the bystander and the perpetrators, and that they don't see themselves as having any control outside of themselves, so they can perpetuate these actions. And also another really interesting fact was our compartmentalization that we tend to use and do with each other. Compartmentalizing, as many of you would figure out, is the fact that we put something away and not have to deal with it when we have the task at hand. Well, that could be a good thing. That could be a really positive thing, because we do need to compartmentalize. Otherwise, we wouldn't get tasks done when we're in a very bad state. We've had a bad day, or God forbid, we've lost somebody we love, but we still need to go on. But like anything else, it could also be very negative if we compartmentalize and we're able to put away people's feelings and the suffering of others, that it's not a big deal and that it doesn't matter, and dehumanize. Well, that leads to the Holocaust. It leads to what happened in Cambodia. It leads to the Hutsis and Tutsis, where they were able to actually, as neighbors, as we've all been reading this past week, kill each other because they compartmentalized it. It was for their greater good. And they look at a lot of the psychologists that I read about, and the scholars and researchers talk a lot about social cognition. The social cognition and our failure to recognize the suffering in a target group is a big issue with dehumanizing. If we turn off our social cognition, the fact that when we can, cognition is of course to understand, or our social understanding. If we can turn that on and off. It's just a lot of times it doesn't feel good to turn it off, keep it on when something's not comfortable, which comes back to our primitive dinosaur days of, if something is scary or we don't like it, it might kill us, so we better kill it first. Well, these are primitive defense mechanisms that we have built into us, but we can override those. And I think that is one of the bigger issues that we can actually really look at, is that we can do that as human beings. And these are kind of some of the things that, after looking at a lot of the different processes, including the the hero savior. When economies get rocky and things get unstable, we look for somebody to go and save us, including a dictator. And their needs for self-aggrandizement and grandiosity, that kicks in. And then the need to go and be able to do anything to get that ideological utopian state, that all comes into play. But if we were able to catch these things, it's kind of like a barometer. It's kind of like when we measure weather, when we know like the storm's coming and we prepare. Well, we could kind of do this too with our own psychology. And that's what a lot of psychologists are doing. We could start to measure when things are starting to get kind of rough, tenuous, or maybe even in a bad situation that it could lead to a potential genocide. We could actually work on preventing it by looking at where a country's at with their collective psychology and mindset. I mean, I'm talking about here individuals, because we have to look at ourselves first, and then we could look at ourselves as a collective unit. But the bottom line is, if we disassociate ourselves from each other, we could hurt each other, because the other person doesn't exist. They are the other, the enemy, and it doesn't matter. But if we can be brave and we can see ourselves and see each other as one and connected, then we can work together through the rough moments and try to heal the damages that are in there, or the fears. And I know these are obviously very utopian thoughts that we're discussing here, but psychologists and researchers believe that with work, time, education, and preparation, that we could actually make a dent in some of these horrific acts that we've all been reading about for the past 8 weeks. That we could do something, that we could make some kind of a positive change if we're willing to go and look at ourselves as our mirror. And if we're willing to go and do the work that it's going to take to go and really dig in and make a change and make a difference. But we all can do it. And this is the work that I've been chose to do for this paper, is to look at the psychological components. And I hope that this has been helpful. And if anyone has any questions, please let me know. I'll be having my abstract and my bibliography up, and please let me know. And thank you so much.